Good evening. I think it's still evening. We are here in my inner sanctum at home because I wanted to, since we're not going to have a class on the Cardinal on a holly branch, I thought it might be helpful if I just do a few little videos through the process to maybe help you remember some things that we covered in class, but to help you along as you go through doing this collage. As you can see, I have finally finished mine. Pardon me. And there's a couple things that I'm going to suggest that you think about that I've noticed or my husband Philip has noticed. But basically, I like him. I think he came out very nicely. I tend to hardly ever border anything. And so all of my collages are just with a binding. I only have one that I have not quilted. So I'm very traditional when it comes to that, the finishing aspect. So as you see, I have mounted mine on my flannel board, and this is the system that I use at home. I think I had mentioned in class that it's one of those children's art boards, but that's what I use because I can sit down and it can accommodate any size that I plan on doing. So I have mounted my foundation, as I say. What I chose for our foundation fabric for this is a white on white, and I hope you all like it. I liked it because once we get our cardinal and our holly and our berries on it, you won't be able to see it, I'm sure, but it sort of looks like snowflakes coming down. So I thought that would be a nice background for our bird in wintertime. When you get yours, we will be going over this again, but I want you to make certain that I have numbered everything that I should have. So you should have a number 2 up here in his head. We have a slight number 1 for the breast of the birds that normally is a little lighter than the rest of the body. A number 2 as it moves into a deeper value. We have 2 up here in our head. The wing is normally darker. The wing normally really stands out. So I have made that number 4. We have number 3 coming here up at the back. My light source is coming from my lower right. And so this part that is behind the wing, of course, is going to be a little deeper than what is down here in the body. So that's a number 3. 3 going up into the tail, and then make sure you have number 4. That's what we're doing first off, is making certain that the numbering is on all components. Remembering though, those numbers are just suggestions. They are not carved in stone. What you're seeing for a demarcation between 1 and 2 and 1 and 2, that's a blending. You're going to blend into those deeper colors there. You may blend in down in here. You may blend in up in here. It's just saying in this area, start to think a little deeper, a little darker in value. So that's our bird. You will see that I did not number my leaves, and I may have numbered the leaves on our tulip. I think I did a little bit. I have found with leaves, in my opinion, with the variation of fabrics that we use, that gives you your different values automatically. So I'm challenging you to feel it. We know if our light is coming from this source, or if you want yours to come from this direction, you'll have to play accordingly. But mine coming from here, I will probably place my deeper greens up here toward the top of the leaves until I get down in here. These will be lighter. They have the light source coming toward them. And that's what we're going to be concentrating on. It's just the variation that we're going to get from our different fabrics that we're using. And we're working on the feet along with the branch because I learned if I just do my branch and come back to my feet, I can no longer see my feet. So we are going to get our feet done while we can still see the outline. And we'll just store them up here in the corner for a little bit. So our first step will be working with our branch and our feet. And then we will move into our leaves. At some point, maybe along with our leaves, we'll do our berries. The berries might come along with the bird, but the bird, we're going to have a session where we're working on his beak. We're going to work on his eye together. I'm not going to make you watch this as I put on every piece, but I'll try to put on enough pieces that you see what I'm doing, where I'm going. Does that mean that's the only way? No, it does not. This is your collage. You have to feel good about it. You have to feel that it's expressing what you want. And if you like it, that's all that's important. You know, Philip may walk through here and say, oh my God. Well, sometimes I listen and sometimes I don't, because sometimes I like what I've done. So it's all in your eyes, not anyone else's. What I'm going to be doing now is looking at my fabric. And I know my first step, because it's what is most behind things, will be my branch with the feet. So I have pulled some browns, and I don't know that I will need all of these. I have several here, and we don't have that much branch. But I did pull them out, and they're all already on my steamacine. If you are not using steamacine, then you will just be using your fabric and using straight pins to adhere it to your foundation. But mine already is prepared with steamacine, and I would suggest you do that also. And sort of lay it out as we had talked about in class, dark to light. And so I will be doing that next with my browns. This may not have a home with us. We'll have to see. So those are my browns. And then when I look at his feet, because there's so little there, and when you have something that has a beak, the beak is small. So I normally use the same fabric when it is that type of a setting. The one that I have finished, maybe I can show you this. This is the fabric I used for the feet and the beak. And Philip came through and said, I don't think it's light enough. I think it's too dark. Well, I had already quilted it at that point, so he may be right. I don't know. So I will be trying something a little lighter on this one and see if I like it better. But this I had liked because there was so much variation in the fabric itself, so I didn't have to try to use 2 or 3 fabrics to get some variety. But I have pulled just a few. I mean, we're talking very little. So I have that, which is certainly lighter. This may be too much, too dull, too plain. I'm leaning toward this, but we'll see. We'll see what I end up with when I get to doing this. So, but that's what I have selected. That's my palette for the feet and the beak. And I will go ahead probably and put my beak the same as the feet. So I'll just put that piece up here so I don't misplace it or forget. So that's it. hope you enjoy the Cardinal as much as I've liked him. This session we're going to work on our branch and also his feet. So I have started my branch, but we're going to move over here to his feet, and I want to show you a little trick in getting it fairly accurate. So what I'm going to do is, this is the piece I'm using, and I think it'll be the piece that I end up keeping because I am liking it. But I am peeling off the backing just a bit, just as much as I need to trace. I seem to really be into tracing these days, but I'm going to trace that foot, and remembering I'm going to come up into the body because all of our pieces need to overlap. So I'm getting the fabric out of my way as much as I can, and I'm going to trace what we have as his foot. And bringing it up longer than the foot because I want the body to cover part of the foot. So I've ended up with a tracing of what his foot looks like. I hope you can see that, but that will enable me to cut around that I have just traced. So I'm not cutting and then trimming and getting sometimes a little frustrated with the whole process. So there we are, my backing is off, and I can lay it right over there. So I know that his feet are going to fit, so I'm just going to get them out of the way. But I wanted to do it now before I do my branch so I can still see the tracing of his feet. So now I'm going to work on my branch. As I started my branch, I thought of something that I don't think I've mentioned before. Let your fabric work for you as much as it can. And by that I mean, when I picked up this piece, which is right here, it has some direction in it, much as a limb would have, much as a trunk would have. So rather than cutting across, I'm going to cut with that design that's going to give me a little more interest to that piece of fabric. So that's what I have done here, and I've used this piece to start it off, and then my piece with the lines in it, and then I moved on to this sort of a cocoa color, and I try to not have straight edges. I like to either angle them or curve them, but it just keeps it from being a straight piece. Now, as you can see, that's why I've done my feet already, because I am covering up that foot, or where the foot is. And I'm going to move on. Now this is a leaf that's coming into our branch, so I'll probably just sort of do another little branch part here, and then wait for my green, for my leaf to start, the stem of my leaf to start filling in. Remembering that it's all in the eye of the beholder, and some things that I would worry about, you might not, and vice versa. So And I will go ahead and do what little bit remains of the branch and work with my browns. I'm blending into darks to lighter, lighter to darks. That needs to be shaped up. But that's what you have to do. That's why auditioning each piece is so important in a collage, because it needs to work with the pieces that it's next to. There we go. Well, let's put the feet back on. Let's see what we Now notice his feet are extending into the body, because when I put this part of his body on, of his little belly, I want to cover up. We always want overlapping. So that's why I made his feet a little longer. What I could have done is make the feet end here, and if that was the mistake I made, then I would just bring his body down a little bit to cover. But we always want to overlap. Do remember that. You can see what we're doing, and you can easily see where you're going to continue on with your stem. This is the leaf portion of our cardinal on a holly branch. For my leaves, I'm going to try very hard to retain the light coming in from this lower right segment. So in order to do that, I did go ahead and I sorted my greens into lights, and I have about 7 or 8 here, mediums, and again 7 or 8. You know, they're bits and pieces from previous projects, but that's my mediums and my darks. I only went with light, medium, and dark because my leaves aren't all that broad, and I'm mostly looking for layering as opposed to, for instance, on the bird, his shading will be throughout the body, whereas here it's really dark, medium, and light, I felt. So that's what I have done. I also pulled out 2 weirdos. This one I probably definitely will use somewhere, only because it's interesting, and I think it would add a little spark to the leaf wherever I end up placing it. And I don't know, but I pulled them out, and so they're sort of in their own little stack of accent, maybe we can call it that. So I have stood back, and I'm pleased with this leaf. Whether it has any changing done to it, I don't know at this stage, but it's fine for now, so I can move on to another one. You can see I brought the stem of the leaf in over part of this leaf because we want to always overlap, and it's also onto the berry where I've also ended this branch. That, of course, will be covered by a berry. So now I'm going to work on this. Again, my light is coming from here, so in my mind, I see the lightness of my leaf is going to be predominantly in this lower right corner of this particular leaf. So that's what I'm going to keep in mind. I nearly always will start with my dark, just because I do. So let's get started. There, now notice it's overlapping my stem. the stem of the previous leaf. I will lift that stem once I get everything placed. So I'm going to lift this. So I can get that placed. And I'll put this right back where I had it. Now I'm going to be a little more shallow with my depth as I come up, because remember, my light is coming here. So let's see what we do with that. And I think maybe I'll go with sort of this brighter green, since it's working its way into what I think is light. With all of these points of a holly leaf, it does get a little challenging to get your scallop the right way, but we work at it. This is out of my medium stash, and I'm not liking that. What I'm not liking about it is that it isn't the right shape, but it will go there. So I'll just trim it down. Love my Karen Buckley. I mean, you can almost hear the scissors serrating through the fabric in steam-a-seam. I think I ended up over there with it. I'm going to trim this off a little more. That point has no reason to be there. I'm still within, remember we try to keep it no smaller than our little fingernail and no larger than our thumbnail. And I made that, so, all right. Maybe a little more medium, and then I'm going to go to my lights. Feel for how much I need to trim. I'm looking behind and I see I need to come about in there. But that's a large enough piece that I'm not going to put it in my discard tray. I'm going to hold on to it because I might need that somewhere. So it stays on my table. Making certain I'm overlapping. And I want to trim that a little more. see what we have here. This may not work, but let's see how that plays together. It may work. Let's see what we have that can go in the middle. See how that works. This is a piece that I had trimmed off earlier and left on my table for a just in case. I think it works. Yep. Okay, so that's that leaf done. I think I will probably move on down to this one, and I tend to go clockwise when I'm working. So I'll work on through here, and then I'll do the one up here by the bird, up here by our cardinal. I will be certain to overlap this leaf into the bird because I want the clean edge to be my bird. So there will be overlap into his body with that leaf. But that's the leaf. And I will stand up now and walk back and look at this one alongside that. I do have small pieces, you know, when your pieces, when you end up a lot of pieces that are the size of your little fingernail, when I quilt it, then I will be certain to quilt over these leaves a little more densely than I might here in the background. And I do free motion quilting, so that isn't an issue. But if you're doing any other, if you're doing using your walking foot or something like that, you'll want to be certain to have this a little denser if you also are using smaller pieces, because although it will be adhered because of the light steamosine, you still want it really good and secure. So that's our leaves. Good luck. This is an addendum to what we just finished on the leaves. I sometimes wonder if I listen to myself, but as we're working on these pointy parts of our leaf, I just realized one good thing that we can do, just as we did with his feet, remember? Let's see, what am I working into here? Let's go into maybe this piece. I have this curve here. Why don't I peel back my backing? You know where I'm heading with this, right? And draw that curve, overlapping a little bit and coming up onto that branch a bit, down onto the previous scallop, and then just sort of making whatever shape I want. But now I have something to cut by. I've made an outline. I didn't think of that before. Would have been so much easier through all of this. So I hope you haven't worked on any of it until you've heard this part. Sorry. Here we go again with our cardinal on a holly branch. We are down to doing our bird. What I elected to do this time on my original one, I just used reds, and when I got to looking at my berries, I decided this time I was going to try to use some deeper reds. All I did was freehand cut out circles and of some deeper ones, and I do have a couple that are a little lighter. But I isolated the reds I used for the berries instead of just using the reds I used on the bird also. It's up to you. So on my bird, I'm going to try to hold this up so you can sort of see my palette. Whoops, which way am I going? Like this maybe. Okay, there we are. You can see I'm going from dark to light. I am concerned that I may not have enough variety in here. I'll have to see once I get started. But those are the reds I had that stayed in the family of reds. You know, a Cardinal doesn't lend itself to the bluish reds, to the maroons. A Cardinal is more of the tomato reds, more toward yellow, which would be the orange side of the reds. So that really started to limit what I had in my reds. So I may have to go out and do a little red shopping. I'll see, but I'm going to start with what I have, and I arranged them dark to light. As I thought about how I'm going to start, I decided to start with his black, what I'm calling a collar. So to do that, I used our little technique that we've used before, where I peeled back some of my light stemacine so I could trace around the area that is going to be his collar and cut it out. This black that I used obviously was stemacined some time ago, and so once I peeled it back and did my cutout, or I'm sorry, once I peeled it back and traced around my shape, it didn't want to adhere again because it has, God only knows how long it's been on this piece of stemacine. So whereas before it must have been fresher, and so it adhered enough for me to cut it out easily. If that happens to you, that okay, you've traced it but it doesn't want to stay secure, just very lightly press it again, and that will activate the glue of the stemacine. It just needs just a touch. So this is what I had traced, and I'm going to see how it fits. I don't know which is more stubborn, the stemacine or me in trying to get it to come off. So I'm going to use my pen and scratch a little bit on the back of the stemacine. Remember, we talked about that. And then it will peel away. Now what I did, I included his eye. And I included his eye because there is black around the eye. And so I will overlay his eye onto this. That's easier than trying to cut out all those little pieces to give the eye socket and the iris around the eye and all that good stuff. I see though I didn't cut as much as I should have. So, well, I'll finish that off later. I'm going to come on down now into what is labeled number 1, or the lighter of my reds. I'm not going to try to stay right with where I am showing 1 ends and 2 begins. That's just to give me an indication of where I should start using deeper values, so that it is not a line of demarcation. It is just a reminder. Okay, let's start darkening it up. So I'm going to finish with my light. Now this was the edge of my fabric, so I have a straight line. I try not to have anything exactly straight unless there's a reason to, so I'm going to do a little shaping there. You can see what I'm starting to do. I'm going to bring it on around, still with some of my mid-range. But I want to show you what I'm going to do for the eye, and that's why this piece is over here. I found this fabric. I was fortunate to have it. But you can see that it's a lot of circles with circles around the outside of it. So I'm going to see if that won't work for my eye. Maybe a little too small. Since it's going to be so small, if I like the way it looks, this is one of those times when I will use my glue stick and put it on the back to have double sticking, because I'm ending up with a fairly small piece here. The eye may take a little work, but at some point we have to get the eye in there. We have the beak. So again, I'm going to see if I like what we used for the feet in the beak area. And live with it for a little bit of time. So I will finish this. I think that's sort of working out. So that's where we are with this collagers. We're just going to go, I will come back now and finish my area down here. My one is in, I'm going to finish up the two. I'm really not liking this piece at all. So there, that's working better for me. Oh, yes, yes. This, I think, was just too large, for one thing. I'm tucking it up under, bringing it down a little bit there. Oh, that's coming along. I'm feeling better. I'm feeling better. So this is a little spare piece. So that's what I will do. I will finish up this area. I will move back to his wing, finish his wing. I'm probably then going to go up to his crown area, and remembering that I need a little black here. I may end up having to redo this whole piece. I don't know, we'll see. His beak does call for a little line in here. That will be up to you. You can do some stitch painting. You can leave the beak as is, which may be what I will do, or paint a little bit of paint will define the lower part of the beak and the upper. I don't know, you have to see what you want to do and exactly what feel you want. I tend to cut mine down fairly close to whatever the object is, leaving maybe 1.5 inches at the bottom and 1 inch on the other 3 sides. I have found also that for my taste, I prefer just a little binding. I hardly ever will border, but again, that's just my personal taste. So when I am finished with him, a reminder, I'm going to press this with a very hot iron, a lot of steam, and when I'll do an area and an area and an area, working my way through it, come back and do it at least one more time. Again, area by area. We want to make certain that it's all adhering, but we also want to soften up this the pieces that have the steam on them, so that the quilting of it will be a little more acceptable to whatever our machine is doing. So the more you steam it, the softer it will make that fabric. So that is it. Can't wait to see all your finished products, and hope you're enjoying it. So good luck, and do, when you are finished, bring it in to show and tell. Thank you.